Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. Tonight, I am excited to share with everybody this throwback interview from back in the Tune Styles days with Carrie Colliton, who's the co-founder of Record Store Day. We actually talked deep about the history of the event, kind of all the inner workings around how it gets put together, how those classic releases get made. I mean, this is everything you want to know about Record Store Day if you're someone who actually celebrates. Now, don't worry, when I say an episode is from the vaults, I actually go through and listen. And, a little kudos to Jay and I here. There's nothing dated in this episode, so bravo to us. And I hope you guys enjoy this deep dive into this cultural phenomenon known as Record Store Day. And if you like what you're hearing here on My Weekly Mixtape, you can always help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper over at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, gain early access to upcoming episodes, chime in on future topics, become a guest curator, and so much more. Once again, that's patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. And with that, I hope you enjoy this sit down with Record Store Day co-founder Carrie Colliton. So for any music fan, Record Store Day is a holiday that probably eclipses Christmas, I would say. It is the day for the record and music lovers to go out to the stores and purchase ungodly amounts of vinyl and CDs and any other exclusive releases. Every music fan knows about Record Store Day. So it's a pleasure to have you on to talk about this.
Well, thank you very much. And I would dispute that every music fan knows about Record Store Day yet, because we're still going. So we still feel like we have a job to do in making sure that eventually every music fan knows about record stores and about this special day.
Touché. All right. Well,
Excellent.
Look, being the music nerds that Jay and I are, we have been fans of Record Store Day since the inception, because we have been consuming physical media since I did that instead of toys when I was a kid. I went to the record store. I didn't go to the toy store. So this is like the holiday that I feel like was made for me. I think Jay feels the same.
It was made for you. It was made exactly for you guys and all the other yous out there in the world. I'm glad you feel that way, because that's exactly the idea.
So why don't you talk about how Record Store Day began and how you cultivated this quote unquote holiday yearly for the music fan?
Sure. Well, to start off, I'll say there is no plan. There is no guidebook. I don't believe that if anybody had set out to say, okay, I'm going to make this, that you could actually have had like a step-by-step plan to do it. There's no checklist. There's none of that. We literally started by saying, you know what? We're tired of hearing in the press and hearing in popular culture that record stores are dead. Wasn't it great when we had record stores? It's so sad that we don't have record stores anymore. And the reason we started getting frustrated with that is because the people who started Record Store Day, our day-to-day job was working in or with record stores. And we knew that, yes, Tower Records, RIP, was closing, and we knew that there were issues with, FYE and other big chain record stores, but we also knew that individual independent record stores and even chains of record stores that were independently owned were very flexible and were very smart, and they were the people we worked with, and we saw that that was still viable, and they were still there, and they were still kicking it. And why was every story basically written before any questions were asked? And it was all about the death of record stores and the death of physical media. And we just thought, you know what, let's just have a party and have a press release and send it out and invite as many stores as want to be part of it and do whatever it is that you do at a party and just feel like we had done something to get the word out there.
Now, do you have a background in marketing and PR kind of work? Because I know that a lot of what goes into Record Store Day involves contacting a wide across the world, I'm assuming at this point,
Oh yeah, it involves communication of all kinds to all kinds of people. And I personally, I may be the luckiest person in the world career-wise. I started working in a record store when I was in college, and at the same time I also worked at a radio station. And I was in college at a school called Virginia Tech. It's in the mountains of Virginia, and it was like a little bubble. It was this wonderful community where we basically, as kids, got to run around and do all this stuff with music and book our own shows and run our own record stores and run radio stations, and both college and commercial. And it was amazing, but it also taught you, okay, this job is fun, but it has to get done. And you have to learn how to do this job. And that is what I've done all the way through to today with Record Store Day. So I worked at a record store, and then I helped open more record stores in this little regional chain. And then I worked under Michael Kurtz, who I still work with on Record Store Day. He was the marketing director for this little chain, and I started working with him, and I learned how to do in-stores, how to work with labels, how to work with artists, how to work with other record stores. It's all things we've taught ourselves. It's all just be a good person, have a good heart, treat people with compassion and respect. And if you're going to ask them to do something, be willing to do it yourself. Be willing to go and do it with them. And seriously, I don't lie when I say I am the luckiest person when it comes to careers, because that is what everything I've taught myself to do. Record Store Day for me is a lot about social media and outreach to people and outreach to customers and sending out requests for artists to do things and sending out requests for stores to do things and helping stores become better retailers, become better businesses. Learning on my end how to help them do that is what Record Store Day has kind of become. We're all very self-taught in this world of record stores.
And Carrie, that's really refreshing, because that hustle, that drive and motivation, showing off your passion for what you do, I think it's lost on a lot of people. And that's kind of what I think ties back into what you were originally saying at the top of the show. It kind of fueled that, oh, well, I guess just record stores are dead because who buys records anymore?
Yeah, well, I think it's telling, too, that obviously the biggest names in record stores were Tower. And again, Tower didn't close because people stopped buying records or caring about records. There are a lot of reasons why Tower closed. And Colin Hanks' fantastic documentary goes into that. Mm-hmm. It wasn't because people didn't love records and didn't love Tower. And a lot of record stores close for a lot of reasons. It's one of the reasons why we, on social media, kind of make a decision. We don't talk about a lot of closings, partially because we're a made-up holiday, and made-up holidays should be fun, and we talk about all the good stuff that happens. But we don't talk about the closings because they're always so complicated. It's never just simply people stop buying records, nobody cares, everybody's downloading or everybody's streaming. It's never just that. There's always something else. And that is not unique to record stores. That's any business. It's restaurants, it's hardware stores, it's whatever. Everything is so complicated when you're running a small business, which is the other side of what Record Store Day celebrates and promotes. Music and physical media and the love of records. And, you know, I have 3 turntables in my house, but 1 television. I am very into the vinyl aspect of Record Store Day, but it's not the only thing Record Store Day is about. And that other side of it is those people have the hustle. The stores that succeed are the ones who are smart and quick and on the ground and staying in touch with their stores, whether they have 27 stores like Newbury Comics, and Lord knows they may be 28 at this point, I don't know, or a single store that has just opened within the last year or two. Those people have a lot in common, whether they know it or not. And one of the things they have in common is us, as Record Store Day, kind of fighting for them and screaming about them in the most pleasant way we can think of, and then also taking on a role lately of trying to help them be better at what they do.
Well, Carrie, you and I think Jay are all on the same wavelength here. Jay and I have been in radio and television and media for 20-something years here. And when I was in college, I worked in a record store, and I always thought that my ending dream job would be able to just sit and talk about music all day long. because that's just something I enjoy. If I'm not listening to it, I'm talking about it. And like you have 3 turntables and 1 TV. I have stereo equipment scattered all throughout the house, so that way I can listen wherever I want, whenever I want. And I can always tell you when the new upcoming albums are, but I couldn't tell you what happened on any episode of Game of Thrones. So
I can do both. I have so much useless knowledge in my head. I can do both.
Well, let me say that you had mentioned something I thought was very interesting, talking about that you don't talk about the negative. And sometimes when stores close, I feel like there's an agenda with trying to push the new formats, the new mediums. And the new medium over the last decade has been downloading and streaming. Now, Record Store Day celebrates the physical medium, but you can't deny that streaming and downloading are a massive chunk of the music consumption pie, so to speak. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are on digital and if the two formats could live, and I apologize in advance for the terrible pun, in harmony.
That was actually not the worst pun. It could have gone. It could have been so much worse. The really interesting thing about this is there are so many opinions on this. This question internally in the music industry, and let me just say real quick, when I say we don't talk about the negative at Record Store Day, I'm not going to do a post about a store closing necessarily, because it's really sad, and it's sad for the people who work there, the people who shop there, and for all, like I said, it's so complicated, and social media is so complicated and can be so painful, and needs to be, the discussion of a store closing really needs to be much more in depth than you can do on a Twitter or Instagram or Facebook post. So we don't really do it there, but we do talk to the store, and we do discuss these things internally, and within the industry, within Record Store Day, all of that is discussed. And we are not Luddites in any way. We all know about streaming. We all know about digital. The people we work with at the labels and distribution balance both things. They are a label. Their job is to sell music, whether it's a stream, a download, a TV sync, or a record or a CD. That's all the same company. So all of that exists, and we are involved in those conversations. We know about those things. The question of whether they can live in harmony has kind of become the industry version of Bear v. Shark or Stones Beatles, the question. And I believe they can live together in harmony, and I think they kind of have to. I think streaming, and a lot of record stores have Spotify playlists. A lot of record stores dabble in that. A lot of record stores who are also record labels have download cards in their records, because they understand people are complicated. People have many ways they want to hear things. There are a lot of situations where I love playing my, Coal Mine Records soul compilations on vinyl is where I think they sound best. But if I'm on a beach vacation or something where that music's going to sound great, but I don't have my turntable, then yeah, my download card is fantastic to have. All of that, everybody listens to things differently in different places, in different situations. I think streaming is a really great way to learn about new music, to introduce yourself to new music, to test something out almost as a listening station. And then once you decide that you really like it, spend some time with it. There's a lot of music out there. It may take you 2 weeks or so to listen to a record 2 or 3 times through and realize, yeah, you know what? I need this in my life. I need this in my collection. And I think there are enough people who are doing that, who are using streaming for certain things, certain discovery, and then translating that to a physical purchase for whatever reason that is. I have a great sound system. I want to make sure the artist is getting paid. I want to have the cover art. Whatever your reason for physical is, and there are so many different reasons that people have physical music collections, I think streaming is, I do it all the time. I'm reading an article, a press release about something, and I'm just going to click and listen to it because it's super convenient. There's no denying that.
That's amazing you say that, because when I first dabbled with streaming, I never thought of streaming, for me personally, and everyone has their different means, but for me, I always felt that streaming was the perfect tool to test drive new bands.
Yeah.
What I love about independent record stores is, though, sometimes they have a pulse based on knowledge that you might not get from Spotify or from Tidal or just from digging around, just because they have so many different people coming in. Word of mouth is massive for any band out there. And I think that's a big part of this. And I feel like the independent record stores are your hubs for the word of mouth. If you're not at a live show, I feel like that's the next place you would be to find out about these bands.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel strongly that a human is the best algorithm for recommendation. And you're never going to match a human saying, oh, dude, you like that record, maybe you should listen to this one, or, oh, I'm about to put this one on, stick around for a couple songs and see what you think, or, yeah, somebody came in and bought that last week, and we listened to it, and it was really, because the clerks get that same feedback and inspiration from the customers,
Right, right.
And I don't think that Spotify, yes, they're going to look at what you're playing, and they're going to recommend very similar things, and I am not savvy in that way. I don't know how algorithms work. They confuse me sometimes, but I use them. I know they exist and they're helpful, but it also seems to me like a lot of times everything is very similar. I listen to this, so it recommends this. It kind of sounds just like what I was just listening to, and that's not, in my mind, really discovery. That's a lovely playlist and may be perfect for whatever I'm doing, and I want a certain theme, but for discovery, I still think the idea of humans talking to each other and learning from each other and being in a social place, and live shows are great for that because you're with other people and you're talking to other people. But how did you learn to go to that live show? Did you hear about it from someone? Did you discover it on Spotify? Yeah, you may have, but then you're going to be with other people and experiencing it, and that's a big factor in a record store. That's a big thing, is the social element of it. And it's a cliche that everybody's kind of snotty at a record store, and, you're not going to have a great time. They're going to make fun of you, or you're going to walk out and make fun of them.
We've all seen High Fidelity.
Yes.
Exactly.
Effect.
And I experienced that, not thankfully in the stores I worked in, but I experienced it. And to some small extent, I do put it down to the fact that I'm female and I would go in record stores. Not anymore, because there are more and more females working in, owning, and shopping in record stores. It's almost laughable when people bring that up now, but it definitely did not used to be the case. I just feel like the social element, and that's something I talk about a lot when people say, why are record stores still working? And why are they still going? And part of it is that social aspect. I mean, people really love being able to just walk into a grocery store and be by themselves and walk around and buy groceries because they can figure out what they need and what they want. People can buy gas without talking to another human. Music is a different thing, and in a lot of ways, books are the same way. And I don't know, maybe food should be that way. Maybe you should have to talk to people when you buy food. I don't know. But there are some things in the world that you still consume that have such a social element to them that it's really great to have a place where like-minded people who are like-minded in that they want to go and consume this music with other humans, but don't necessarily have the exact same taste. If you're open to that, record stores are a fantastic place. Especially now, a lot of them have coffee and beer, and you can listen to things. But going back to how streaming is a great discovery tool, things are set up in the world now of record stores and distribution that it would be very difficult for them to open up every record and maybe even every CD and let you listen to it before you buy it, because for a lot of reasons, vinyl is for the most part not returnable. So once a store gets it, if it's not that it's defective, they can't return it. So they're very likely to not open it up and let you play it before you buy it, because that's a risk and a not inexpensive one for them to take. So the fact that they're streaming or some other way to discover this music and then come in and experience it in the world of the record stores is good. We shouldn't kid ourselves. It's not going away. Streaming. The problem of dealing with streaming, quote unquote, is not going to get easier or go away. So
it's either embrace it. Exactly.
So I want to tie this back in because there's a couple of things that you mentioned that are extremely interesting, bringing it back down to that local level where you talked about how your record stores are in your communities. How much of a role do you think the record store day and record stores in general play for new local music getting discovered as well?
Oh my God. Huge. Huge. And only getting huger, which isn't a word, but
it is now.
It's early. I should not be creating words. So one of the things about Record Store Day that's so exciting is when we have big performers come and celebrate Record Store Day by doing an in-store event. You know, Foo Fighters have played in 2 different record stores, little record stores on Record Store Day. Iggy Pop shows up and serves ice cream sandwiches. I mean, Pearl Jam shows up and donuts, and we've had Wilco performances.
Yeah, there was some band, Metallica or something. I don't know.
Exactly. They were, honest to God, the first to kind of really embrace what we were doing. And they were like, you know what, we're going to go to our record store in a local and we're going to sign records. And they did it for like 4 hours.
That's awesome.
That's so insane. And I don't care if you don't like Metallica. That's amazing that they did that.
They may be big. They might go somewhere.
Right. They might be. My voice gets really high when I talk about how cool that was. But the majority, so there are 1,200, give or take, participating record stores in the U.S. alone. And that's not worldwide, because we are worldwide, man. We are big. But in the U.S. alone, that's 1,200 stores having a day-long party. The majority of the people performing at those parties and celebrating what the record store means to them and to their communities are local bands. The majority of the music. I mean, there are like 15 band bills at these stores. And the videos from those are my favorite part of the day because everyone is happy. Everyone is thrilled. It's guys and girls and children performing at their local record store and being treated like rock stars because the record store recognizes that this is part of our community. I mean, there are some record stores where they're basically a band practice space, you know, book a Tuesday in-store before the store closes and come on, let's watch you grow up. Waterloo in Austin, there are 3 or 4 artists who basically have been playing at Waterloo since they were little kids, just kind of honing their craft and getting better and better and better. And the way that record stores embrace their local musicians is just so indicative of what community is. They will consign your records. They will put up your show flyers. They will put up a flyer to help you put your band together, you know? And I guarantee there's been store staff who have said like, oh, you should come back and talk to this person who plays guitar, who usually comes in on Tuesdays. You guys might get along. I know there are bands that have started over the racks. I know there are.
That's amazing.
And record stores, more and more of them are putting out, doing their own thing in this land of DIY music where everybody can put out a record if they really want to. Record stores are starting labels and supporting their local artists by putting them on the labels. And that's just great to see too. That's just more, you know, that's just the cycle there.
So I want to piggyback off of the ambassadors that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That seems like a hard get for the Foo Fighters, for Metallica, for Pearl Jam. From a marketing perspective, how do you create those partnerships with the bands? Do you have to go through management, the label? Talk about how that comes to fruition.
It's really different with every situation, and that's the case with every release, but the ambassador is a really crazy thing that grew out of Record Store Day, and it's when I said that there's no plan for this, there's no checklist. Ambassador wasn't on our list. We wanted artists to be a part of Record Store Day from the beginning because, there are 3 types of people in 3 groups of people in a record store. There's the people who own it and run it, the people who shop in it, and the people who make the music that's sold in it. So to have a day that celebrates it, you need all 3 groups of people to participate. That was the basic strategy. You're in this group. What do you want to do? So I think it was 2009, maybe our second year. Jesse Hughes from Eagles of Death Metal, they were doing a piece, Eagles of Death Metal was, and he was talking to somebody, I think at his label maybe, or management, And he was like, you know what? This is a great thing. What a great made up holiday. You need an ambassador. I'm going to be it. And just try and stop me, basically.
No, please don't do that.
How dare you tell anybody about this? It's a big secret.
So he went out and just basically, I think he had a sash. The days blur together for me. They really do. I think he had a sash, and I think he just went out and was basically like, I'm here to tell everybody about this great thing called Record Store Day and these great places called record stores. And it was fantastic. And then kind of as a fluke, it could have ended just there. Like, wow, that Jesse, he was crazy. That was awesome. I somehow was doing an interview with his bandmate, Joshua Homme of Queens of Stone Age and Eagles of Death Metal and Them Crooked Vultures.
Yeah, I was just going to say Them Crooked Vultures. And
Yep, I'm actually wearing a Them Crooked Vultures t-shirt right now.
Awesome.
So I was doing an interview with him I think we were going to put it on our website on recordstoreday.com. So I was doing an interview with him, and I said, your buddy Jesse was our ambassador last year. Are you going to just let him kind of one-up you in that arena? And he was like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to let him do that. And I said, well, you realize I'm taping this, right? You realize this is recorded and you have just agreed. And he is like, yeah, this is fantastic. So he was the next ambassador because he agreed to it and I had a recording. And he's the one who created this. You should go on our page and find the Ambassador Archive history page. The video he made as his ambassadorial statement was fantastic. And it's like all these it's kind of like shot like a sci-fi movie, and it's him swiveling around in a chair and saying things like, you need a soundtrack, and just this crazy Joshua sort of thing. But it was perfect. And that's how ambassador videos were born for us. So we got Jesse to create the ambassadorship. We got this fluke of me talking to Joshua and him saying, okay, and creating this video. And then from there, it was just kind of, we talk to labels and management all the time about what can we do year round. Because that's something I hope we get into as well, is that Record Store Day is not just one day, it's not just 2 days, it's year round because records come out all year round. Mm-hmm. So as we're talking to people, we kind of get a sense of which artists make sense, which artists you always want an ambassador when you announce them to be somebody that a person can say, yeah, I get it. I see them in a record store. I buy that. Okay, that makes sense. So there are some artists that would be great for us in terms of their reach, but may not necessarily be, you might have to explain a little bit about, no, they really do shop at record stores, and we may or may not have had a few artists that were a little bit more along that line. But for the most part, when we are talking with people about ambassadorships, it's actually pretty easy because you're only going to have those conversations with people who are already genuinely get what you do, have, at this point, most of them have already done a release for Record Store Day, or have made an appearance, or have somehow participated and celebrated with us. So they kind of get it. We have some requests we make from the very beginning, which is, on our end, we need you to help us spread the word. We need you to agree, you'll do some press, you'll make a video, you'll be our ambassador. And they've all done it in different ways, and they've all done it really well and authentically. And we've had a couple people come to us and say, I want to do this for you. I'm pretty sure Chuck D came to us, which is still fairly mind-blowing to me. By the way, Chuck D, top 5 hugger. He's an amazing hugger, and I don't think he'd be upset with me saying that.
All right, so we're talking about the fun part of the process coming together. Let's talk a little bit about the challenges, the marketing challenges involved in creating a nationwide event with hundreds of independent record stores across the country. I know we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, working, with your background in marketing and PR, how you reach out to those people. So talk about the evolution of that process.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think I mentioned we have about 1,200 quote-unquote pledge sign stores, and I can explain what a pledge is in just a minute. But when we started, I think we were about 200 stores. is where we were. And some of those were easy to get because my Record Store Day is not my day job. It's not my full-time job. Record Store Day is a project that kind of comes out of my full-time job, and that's the same situation for everybody who runs or is kind of on the advisory board of Record Store Day. My real job is director of marketing for a coalition of indie record stores. So when I said that we all worked with record stores day in, day out, that's how we knew they existed and were doing well or still thriving and opening, it's because we all had day jobs. There are 3 coalitions in the United States. They're all various sizes. The types of stores that are in them are a little bit different, but they all came together for marketing purposes and business purposes. Because when you're an independent store, either a single store or like a 3-store chain or whatever, you don't have the power to call up a label with the same sort of buying power or marketing message power as, say, a Target or a Best Buy or Tower or FYE or any of those places. So the coalitions brought these indies together, like-minded indies across the country, into these 3 different coalitions, and they do amazing work for the stores in terms of marketing, in terms of being a liaison, and that sort of thing. And Record Store Day is a project that has grown out of those coalitions. So the first year, all those coalition stores were in. They were part of Record Store Day. And some of them are very famous stores. Rasputin in San Francisco, which is where Metallica was, Bull Moose up in Portland, Maine, Zia Records in Arizona and Las Vegas, Waterloo, Easy Street and Silver Platters up in Seattle. They're all over the map. So those coalition stores were in, and because they knew us and they trusted us. But then there were other stores who were smaller maybe and who didn't know us and who had been kind of kicking it around for a while and finding maybe that it wasn't as easy to do what they had been doing. You know, the industry's changing, times are changing, things are getting a little tougher. And then we come in, these people they don't know, and say, hey, we're going to have this day called Record Store Day, and it's about you. You want to be part of it? We're not asking for anything. Just, do you want to be part of it? They didn't really trust us. You know, they don't know. We could be the man. How do they know? I mean, record store folks are generally nice now, as I've said. They're not the Jack Black character that they might have used to been. But they're also by nature cynical, I think. Almost every one of them, myself included. I might have been like, what? What are you talking about? That sounds ridiculous.
I think every business has to have some pause and some caution in order to be successful.
Absolutely. So that first year, we did get kickback from some stores who now are like kind of our most devoted record stores. But I totally respect that, as you say, that pause. So it grew year over year. It was easier to get stores as we could go back and tell the story. Oh, look, this is what this became. The problem the first year is, just like I said, we didn't know what it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're literally just having a party. Do what you'd like to do. We'll help promote it. You know, that could have fizzled. That could have been nothing. But I do think we felt in our hearts that people like record stores and this would be a fun thing. There's no way we ever would have known what it would grow to be, what it has become, the opportunities it's brought, the challenges it's brought. All of that has been a learning process and continues to be. But from that first year, it got easier because we were able to go back and say, this happened here, this happened here, this was successful. These stores did really well financially and also felt the love. On that day, would you like to be a part of it? That also was the case on the label side and management side, because again, artists don't want to do things that are stupid or aren't going to be successful. And some of them waited a couple years. Some of them still wait to see, does that work? Did that work? Paul McCartney gave us a quote the very first year, which was huge because he had just played at Amoeba in Los Angeles, and he loved his experience. Nick Hornby gave us a quote, and Metallica played, signed in a store. And that was kind of like a good signpost for us that we were on our way and that we were on to something there. But again, it all had to grow and people had to trust us. And that goes back to what I said about we all are teaching ourselves all of this along the way. And the whole way through, all we do is you treat people with respect. You're honest with them. You're as transparent as you can be about what your goals are, what your intentions are. And this is a fun thing, you know. It's if it's a struggle for you to be with us on Record Store Day, then don't worry yourself, you know.
Right.
Wait until it makes sense. And that was kind of our approach to all of this. We'd love to have you with us. Let's think of a way to make that happen where everybody's comfortable and everybody feels good about what we're doing. And that applies to artists, it applies to customers, it applies to stores. I get emails from customers all the time. That's part of what I do, is respond to the email that comes in, and the communication between us and customers and us and stores is often me. And people who don't really get the idea get very upset that they didn't get, you know, their special piece, or the store didn't get something and they don't understand how things work or what our actual goal is. And I've been able to change people's minds and kind of talk them off a ledge, because people get really angry really quickly. But just being as honest and transparent and saying, I'm really sorry you didn't get that record. Right. Our goal was to celebrate the store. Hopefully you got something else that you're going to love.
Exactly.
And this may sound weird coming from someone at Record Store Day, but you didn't get that record, you're going to live. It's okay.
So now I have to ask about that. Every year there are hundreds of exclusive titles to Record Store Day, whether they be regional or national exclusive titles.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about the process that's involved in securing each one of those releases? Not every single one since the beginning, but the general process that you need to go through to actually secure that exclusive Record Store Day release.
Sure. And that is, once again, man, this is going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but again, that is a process that has changed and adapted and grown since the first year. The first year, I think there were less than 20 titles, and they were pretty much all from Warner Brothers, because they were like, yeah, well, just try this and see if it works. That wasn't even necessarily always going to be a part of Record Store Day. It made sense for it to be a part of Record Store Day, special releases, but it wasn't the thing. That wasn't in our head that this was going to be the thing that happens on Record Store Day. It has grown into the thing that happens on Record Store Day, at least in the morning. In the afternoon is when the parties happen. But so, again, that's different with almost every title. It could possibly be something. And Michael Kurtz, who is a co-founder and someone I've worked with for years at record stores, this is kind of he's the captain of this side of things. He works year-round and is, in fact, working right now with people on Record Store Day titles, as well as Black Friday titles. So he talks to people all the time, and it could be an idea that he has and takes to the label and management or distribution. It depends on the artist who you speak to in their world, and says, is this possible? Can we run this up? Can we see what happens? Titles could morph from that, become something else, become something bigger, become something smaller, kind of fall by the wayside. That's not going to work. Profit and loss, that's not going to work for them for this year. It doesn't fall in the cycle of this new release. And then sometimes quite often, labels and distribution will bring things to us and make suggestions. And we have got it down as close to a quote-unquote science as you possibly can with musical releases, because they're all different, they're all special, they're all fantastic. We take that information, and there are a group of record store owners and buyers and staff members from across the country, different regions, different markets, big stores, small stores, who kind of weigh in. They're not the final say necessarily, but they weigh in and say, yeah, that works, or look, we don't want that to get swallowed up in the day. Like, that's too small a piece, or that artist isn't well known enough. We never want somebody to be excited about doing something on Record Store Day and then just feel like they were one of something on a list. So we say no to things because we want the day to feel good for everybody. And it may be that your artist is too not well known enough yet. Emerging artists, baby bands have a tough time on Record Store Day because there are Bob Dylan's on the list and Flaming Lips on the list and U2 on the list and big things. So we say yes or no. We help guide what the numbers are. All of that gets discussed and worked through, and then it gets whittled down to what the final list is going to be. And that final list always feels really large. 300 titles, 350 titles. But you have to keep in mind, Record Store Day is for all kinds of record stores, all kinds of customers. You always want the list to represent somebody's favorite or something that someone is going to like. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. I mean, I ask you to watch it to some extent when we launched the list of Black Friday titles, but when we launched the list of Record Store Day titles, follow the social media comments, like when Pitchfork or Consequence of Sound or somebody reposts it, or when we post it. The social media comments will be, this list sucks, that title's awful. And then almost right underneath it will be somebody saying, I can't wait for that title.
Music is subjective.
Yeah, it's crazy to me, but heartening at the same time. Like, people will say, oh, this list is awful, I only want 5 things on the list. Like, well, that's fantastic. There are 5 things you want to go buy at a record store. Hallelujah. And by the way, the neighbor in your office, he's got 3 things, and they're completely different than yours.
Yep.
And everybody's 3 things make up the list. And that's, to me, that's, perfect. That's the way it should be. But, and that we could get into a whole nother conversation about social media and the things I've learned and seen. But it's crazy. Oh, this sucks because of this title. That's my title I'm looking forward to. And
well, let's dive down that rabbit hole then.
Yeah, of course.
How has social media benefited or hindered the Record Store Day process?
There's no question that it's benefited us. I mean, the benefits far outweigh the annoyances or the problems or the issues. And the idea that we are able to kind of be a central focus point for people finding stores near them, that still happens. I mean, we get so much more traffic. We get a lot of traffic on our website, and we can see who's going where and what pages they're clicking on. And it's people going to the store search looking for stores near them or stores near where they're going to be. You're traveling for the summer. You're finding out where are the record stores. And we know that people are using us as a hub to find those stores. And I feel like they're using our social media in the same way.
I'm chuckling because every time we go on vacation, my wife knows that I'm always
looking for
the first thing I'm looking for. Like, oh, sure, yeah, there's some beautiful beaches and lakes and things to do in the area, but are there any record stores? I mean, geez.
Exactly. Oh my God, record stores make the best souvenirs.
Right?
Yes.
They really do.
And for people that are music nerds like me, I actually, in my mind, I will pull out a CD and be like, I remember when I bought this in Myrtle Beach on our 10-year anniversary. And my wife will look at me like, what? Like that? How did you remember? I said, oh, of course. I was looking for this CD, but I found this one instead. And it was so great. And it's just something that only true music consumers and collectors understand that plight right there.
So bear with me for a moment because I got a side story on that.
Okay.
And we were talking about Tower Records, and when I, growing up upstate New York, did your schools do the field trips at the end of the year? You get to go to different cities or whatever?
Yes.
So yeah. So we were going to New York City, and we somehow the bus got down in front of a Tower Records, and I said, we stop so I can run in there. And I had been looking for the 1986 Transformers, the movie soundtrack. And the bus driver said, all right, we got about 5-10 minutes extra. We can go. The chaperone said, go. We went in, and we were just like kids in candy stores, but we were kids in a record store. And we were just pawing through this. And I found the last copy of that soundtrack. And I still have that disc.
I should hope so.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what a fantastic memory. And I really wish someone had videoed a bus full of kids running into a record store.
I bet you those record store employees were terrified to see a flood of students coming in at 13, 14 years old, waving scads of money, saying, buy my record.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
Let's bring this part up because I know, and again, not to dwell on the negative, but I know that this is an issue that music fans and store owners, and of course your team have had to deal with, which is the online flipping of your record store titles. So people will go in, it's kind of like scalpers on Ticketmaster. They go in, they wait, they get the list, they go in on record store, they scrape up a bunch of them and walk out and sell them for a premium.
Yeah. So I'm happy to talk about this because that's what I do for the 3 or 4 weeks before Record Store Day and then the weeks afterward. And I'll say a couple things, starting with, man, they suck and I hate those people. And they are a product of the society we live in. And, you know, I just want everyone to know. The ones I hate worse are the ones who pre-sell and they list things on Record Store Day from the day we launch the list. They will take all the pictures, even though we watermark them now that says buy it from a record store so that people know, oh, this isn't someone who has that record. They are literally taking the artwork from Record Store Day, listing it on eBay for usually $100, no matter what it is, because that's easier. They can just batch list things. And then they almost every time will say at the bottom, this is a pre-sale, this will ship, and it always ships like 3 or 4 days after Record Store Day. Because they go out and they try and buy them. And people are like, well, that just seems silly. But think about it. If we have 300 titles on our list and you're listing everything for $100 and people are buying them because they're either A, too lazy, or B, just want this and don't care about supporting record stores, they will pre-buy it and give you the $100. If you've got 300 things listed at $100 each, that's a lot of money. So you can even hire people to go shop at other stores and wait in line and you have your list and you buy the things. And we spend weeks before Record Store Day, and I'm going to pat myself on the back here, we are really good at finding out if those listings are actually tied to a store.
That was my next question. How would you do that?
Amazingly good. Well, we do a lot of, the internet helps us because sometimes people are really dumb. And they forget that we are on the internet too. And we can look at things, and I can't really go into too much detail because I don't want to make people
No. Yeah, let me rephrase. We don't want to encourage this in any way, but that was my general question, because if a store B finds out that they're getting 10 copies of a Bob Dylan album, maybe they're going to put 2 out on the shelves and then 8 of them up on eBay. How do you know?
Well, in a lot of cases, we do know, and it really comes down to things like Google Maps and home buying records and what is that address, and we are really good, and we have been, and I hesitate to go into too much more detail.
No, of course not, but it's a shame that you even have to deal with a situation like this.
It is, and I will say that there are some people on eBay who we know who they are, we know where they live, we have not tied them to a store yet, but every year we ship a few off, and we've had people banned from stores. We've had stores completely banned from the list because it was them or their employees. We've had stores who will never be part of Record Store Day again because, and I think I mentioned the pledge earlier. The pledge also grew out of things that are, as we learned that people will open their store at midnight, which is insane to me because this is a day of the year you could open your store at 6 p.m. and you'd still have a line. It doesn't matter, but you're opening at midnight. But that is a disservice to your customers who didn't get there at midnight and a disservice to your other stores in your area who feel like they have to open earlier. So we ask stores to do 3 or 4 things. Don't open at midnight. You have to be 8 a.m. or the equivalent time on the East Coast. So if you're on the West Coast, you can open at 5 a.m. because it's 8 a.m. on the East Coast time. So you can't gouge. There are kind of price limits. There's a range of pricing, but you can't gouge because in a weird way, this day is not about you making all that money on that release. You're going to make money on that release because we've made sure there is a margin for everyone who plays a part. There's a margin for the distributor. There's a margin for the label. There's a margin for Record Store Day, by the way, does not have a part in that. We play no part in the buying and selling or distributing of the releases. We have nothing to do with what gets ordered, what gets shipped, what gets priced, and what gets put out on a store rack. Nothing. We make no money on the releases unless we have created and released the title ourselves, which we've done 3 or 4 times.
Wow. One follow-up on that, though, with the price gouging, from a marketing perspective, if you were a record store owner and you were price gouging, let's say the release was MSRP of $29.99 and you're putting it up for $74.99, you're not going to be getting any repeat business out of it. So you're kind of defeating the whole purpose of bringing the people into the store for this holiday.
Absolutely. And you know what else? people love to snitch. They just love it. And I'm fine with it. Like, somebody will buy that and this happens every year. Somebody will buy that $74 record, and they'll take a picture of the receipt, and they'll send it to me, and they'll say, this store was gouging. Isn't that against the pledge? And I'll say, yes, it is. And then we have a conversation with the store.
Wow.
That's great.
Wow.
I mean, we have to take this seriously.
At the end of the day, it's a business.
It is a business, but think about it this way, and a lot of stores don't. Record Store Day is the biggest, most effective marketing campaign your business will ever be a part of, and you don't have to pay for it.
Right.
Right. Luckily, in our area of New Jersey, there are several record stores within very local distance to where Jay and I are from. And the vibe in the community around it is such a celebration that the titles are as important as they are. It's more of the vibe of sitting down and talking music with other like-minded people that are all excited to be there and to talk music.
Yep.
And I feel like some of these negative things really kind of suck the fun out of what the whole day is about. And I wish people can just kind of gather around and enjoy I use this term in a positive way, the nerdery surrounding being a music fan.
I do too. And when I say, like, I'm able to, when somebody emails me and they're really upset that they didn't get a record, and Record Store Day sucks because I didn't get this record, or Record Store Day sucks because this record that I wanted is now for sale on eBay. Record Store Day sucks. You suck. I'm not coming back. And they use harsher words because they don't actually sometimes think there is a human on the other end of what they're sending.
Of course.
The internet.
But I'm almost always respond after a little while, after I take a walk, respond and say, look, I'm really sorry. Here's what Record Store Day is. Here's what we intend. Here's what it's meant to do. Here's the larger picture. Please don't take what this awful person on eBay is doing and blame us or the record stores, because you could pay $25 for a bag of $3 Oreos with Game of Thrones on them when that finale was out on eBay. You could, when Target does a collaboration with a clothing designer, people scoop everything into a basket, take it home, and sell it on eBay.
Mm-hmm.
It is not just us. It's sneakers. Oh, my God, sneaker drops, which happen every other day. Those things sell out immediately, and you're never going to get them on the street. You're going to get them on eBay for 3 times more than they would have been had you actually been able to line up and go to your local Foot Locker or whatever the store is now. And that happens with everything. Everything that is desirable and limited is going to be on eBay. It's not just us.
So I do want to follow up on that with, let's say there is a title that is going to be the hot title for Record Store Day. And let's say it's limited to 1,000 pressings. If you know it's going to be hot and it's going to be going up on eBay within seconds, is there any reason why you would not press 2, 5, 10, 20,000 copies of it to make it more available? Does that detract from the special aspect of the release? And this is coming from just a question that I would have if I missed out.
Right. No, and I totally understand that question. Here's a 2-pronged answer. One, again, it depends on the artist, and it depends on, well, actually, it's a 3-pronged answer. One, we don't always know what that title is going to be. We don't always know. Sometimes it's a surprise what that title is going to be. 2, it's not our decision, ultimately. It's the decision of the artist and management, what that number is. And there have been times when we will go back to them and say, look, store pre-orders for this are ridiculous, or even before it gets solicited to stores, we think based on sales history it needs to be this number. And the artist will say, look, we really want this to be limited and special. We want that to be a very, very rare piece. And it's not our decision to make, ultimately. And if you go too far in the other direction, if you do this too often and say, I mean, it's never going to be an exact science, although we think we're getting better. If say you think you should make 3,000, the demand for that title was actually 4,000. So what if you had made 5? And then everybody could have gotten what they wanted. Then there would be 1,000 pieces sitting either in record store shelves, and if it's vinyl, they can't return it, or in a distributor's warehouse, and that's money on their books, or at a label, and that's money on their books. And when the label does an exclusive Record Store Day piece, they can't then take it and sell it to anybody else.
Ah.
So they're stuck with it. And that, over 12 years, little pieces, little amounts can add up. And we do not want that. We do not want that more than anything, because that means, you don't have, for stores, it means you don't have space. You don't have the financial ability to turn and bring in some new releases. You don't have, that's bad. And you also don't want the labels or distribution to be stuck with anything. And ideally, we work very hard to say, okay, there's like 500 pieces of this title still remaining that you can sell, and stores will understand this piece is just as cool a week later as it was the day before Record Store Day. Mm-hmm. It's not a loser because it didn't sell on Record Store Day. Someone's going to walk into your store in 6 weeks, and they're going to see this piece by this artist that they loved, and it's exclusive to an indie record store. That's amazing.
Of course.
It's not a quote. I hate it so much when the stores use the words leftover. It's a joke at this point. Stores will forward me social media posts from other stores that call them leftovers, because that has, to me, like a negative connotation. Much as I love Thanksgiving leftovers, it's not that. It is an exclusive indie piece that you can only get at record stores. It doesn't matter if it's 3 weeks after Record Store Day or. But that's the basic answer. Is it's always better to have too few than too many, in the grand scheme of things, no matter how many people didn't maybe get that record.
Of course.
And the other thing, when you, like the 2 days after Record Store Day, when the most things are being flipped on eBay, if you count up the number of releases that were actually put out, and I don't mean the actual titles that were on the list, I mean there were 5,000 pieces of this title, and you count up the actual physical number of pieces that went out, and then you count up the number of eBay sales, it's minuscule compared to the number that actually went out into the marketplace. So the majority of titles are going home with people who are going to keep them and listen to them. And stores have gotten much better. A lot of stores can recognize you're flipping, you're out. Stores get great joy in doing that, actually.
Oh, of course, because at the end of the day, that's showing they're protecting their customers and letting the customers that are there to purchase those albums get their hands on it. Because then the people, let's say Jay is the eBay flipper right in front of me online, and he gets the last copy of an album I wanted. That record store knows that Jay is the flipper. So now you have the guy in front in line who's screwing over the record store, followed by the person who goes to that record store all the time and supports that business, missing out on a title and therefore leaving with a sour taste in their mouth based on that record store. So it's definitely a connection between everything there. And for the record, Jay is not an eBay flipper. I was just using that.
Good man. Well, like I said, we've been able to identify who some of these flippers are, especially the ones who do pre-orders. And one year we identified one, and we called the stores in his area. And one guy said, "Oh gosh, yeah, he's on our frequent buyer club," which means he's going to get into the special line to get in early. He's in our frequent buyer club, and the owner of the store waited until the morning of Record Store Day and went out and addressed the line and said, "Hey, is this person here? Are you in line?" And the guy was in line, and he's like, "Yeah, we know your eBay handle. Get out." I mean, he just called him out in front of everybody. I wouldn't recommend that always, the way to handle it, but he really had a good time that day doing that.
Wow. I mean, that is showing your solidarity with your customers.
Yeah.
But at the flip side, it is very confrontational. So that would have been a very awkward thing to see.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But kudos.
It wasn't me. I didn't have to do it. So that was
right.
good.
It sends a very strong message. I'll give him that.
It's true. It's true.
So let's talk about what gave you the idea to expand Record Store Day to Record Store Black Friday.
That's a pretty easy answer. In the United States, for better or worse, love it or hate it, Black Friday is the kickoff to the shopping season of Christmas, the season of gift giving. And for too many years, record stores were not a part of that. Even though every single thing that is sold in a record store makes a perfect gift. Every single thing. A gift card, a 45 adapter, tiny little things up to box sets, up to musical instruments, whatever you could give as a gift, and it's a great gift. And so we just decided, you know what? Again, it goes back to the press and the focus. If Black Friday is the biggest retail story in the United States, we want to help make record stores a paragraph in that story. and this is the way we do it. It's different. It's not Record Store Day Junior. The list is much smaller. The list is probably more large items, box sets, more windowed titles, which means eventually they'll be available, at other retailers or online. But for right now, for the time period when you're looking at and buying gifts and going out and spending a bunch of money on gifts for other people or making a wish list for yourself, record stores are part of that. And we're trying to make it not about cheap, mass-produced gift items, more about quality things, special things that you would want to get or you would want to give. And it's not necessarily made to sell out on that day. It's literally the kickoff of the shopping season, so that it's just getting the word out there that there are cool things in a record store all season long, and you should do your gift giving it from a record store. And the fact that Small Business Saturday is the day after it is just a 1-2 gift.
Yeah, a win-win.
Yes.
Have you, in your research, in the years you've been doing Record Store Day, Black Friday, because I know that started kind of a few years after the inception of the full holiday, have you noticed in your data that you guys have been capturing a different audience on that day? Maybe not the normal record store regulars, so to speak, that you're capturing in kind of an outside focus group here?
Yeah, it is different. And I mean, a lot of our stuff is anecdotal because you hear from stores rather than we don't have somebody sitting there interviewing people as they come in and out. How often do you shop at a record store? Although, somebody gives us a grant, we'll definitely do that. It is. And the day is structured a little differently for the stores. It's much more of a sales all day through and then on into Saturday and then fading into Sunday. It's definitely different clientele. And a lot of that is we've been promoting the idea of the wish list. Like, okay, you shop at a record store all the time. Here are things you might want to tell your mom or your kids or whoever that you would want so they can come and get them for you.
It's brilliant.
Brian and I have always said on the show, too, right back to the first episode, that music is probably one of the most personal things that you could give somebody. The gift of music in any form, in whether it be, like you mentioned, whether it be the record or whether it be a musical instrument or even a piece of a component to a turntable or something that you have that you're going to gift to somebody else. It speaks to that person deeply because you're in tune with what their likes are, what they have a strong attachment to.
And another pun there with the in tune.
In tune.
Yeah, nice. God, man, you guys are good. Come up with taglines left and right. It's totally true. I mean, and that's what makes, as a complete side note, that's what makes the idea of a mixtape so romantic.
Exactly. So what are some of your favorite Record Store Day memories since its inception?
Oh man, I knew you were gonna say that. So my favorite record store memories. The very first Record Store Day, I was in Baltimore at the Soundgarden, and it was also the day. The Soundgarden in Baltimore is in Fells Point, which is right on the water. It's historic. It's on a cobblestone street. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite record stores in the world, and it was also Pirate Invasion Day. So
that had to be interesting.
It was fantastic. And my little marketing mind was running around like putting records in the hands of these pirates and taking pictures and crossing the two. And that was extraordinary. That was just such a great day because that was the first one. And it was like, this is going to be fantastic. And then for the last record store days, most of the record store days, I stay home in Raleigh, North Carolina. A lot of what I do is on the internet. We stream a lot of in-stores from stores across the country. We do a lot of posts, and just basically we keep up with the world through the computer, which is fantastic and the best possible use of social media. And so I do a lot of that perched at a record store in Raleigh. I'm the person who brings the donuts to the people standing in line really early in the morning at about 3 record stores here. I bring pizza in the afternoon. They all love me.
Of course.
And, a couple times I've been fortunate there was a band that played at one of the record stores, and their fan base was very young. It skewed very young and very female. So there was a line of probably about 300 teenage girls and guys waiting to meet this band. And I was the last person they talked to before they moved up to meet the band. And I had tissues. I had, hey, it's going to be great. I helped people decide what they were going to say to the band, which was almost always, thank you so much. I love your music. And it was their first experience with getting that close to their idols and it was their first experience at a record store, and you could see it fusing together in their heads. This place is awesome. And that's exactly what we want to happen. And that was a really, really great moment.
All right, with Record Store Day almost here, let me know what you are looking to pick up this year. You can hit me up on social media at My Weekly Mixtape, or you can also email me, myweeklymixtape@gmail.com. Would love to hear if you found those holy grails that you were looking for, or sadly, if that eBay guy got to the album before you did. But regardless, remember, you can find My Weekly Mixtape on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, remember, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or joining the Patreon community at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. There you can find ad-free episodes of the show, gain early access to future My Weekly Mixtape episodes, chime in on future topics, become a guest curator, and so much more. That's all for this week. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, I wish you and yours a safe, healthy, and happy Record Store Day, and most importantly, enjoy the tunes.